Good morning. Garrett here. This is video blog 007. I intentionally did that with my voice because my wife said I should work on being less monotone. I won't be able to keep that up. This is my voice. It is what it is. When I get excited, it'll go up. And when I'm upset, it'll do something else. I'll have to keep your attention with making facial expressions and hand gestures because I talk with my hands. Otherwise, this is just my voice. So, anyway, today is Mother's Day 2018. Yesterday was my wife's birthday and also a baby shower for John Lazarus Mullet. And just an all-around good day. Two of my sons and I went to our church in Savage and mowed the yard. That was my son Eli's first time mowing. I showed him the ropes on how to do that, and he took to it with enthusiasm and really enjoyed it. I don't know how long that's going to keep up, but it's nice while it lasts, at least. My son Daniel was really wanting to mow, but I told him, I said, son, I think you're a little too young yet. Someday. For now, we'll get your older brothers learned up on it, and you can pick up the twigs and the rocks and the leaves and just help straighten up after him and help us run for things that we might need. So he did that, and that was helpful too. So yeah, yesterday I spent the morning pretty much working on yesterday's video blog and just being home with the family. And my oldest son mowed our front yard. That's something he's just started doing this year. Man, is it nice. I've got allergies. I have asthma. I've started taking some things a little bit more regularly. I'm getting more disciplined with taking something on a regular basis to regulate, to manage my symptoms with asthma. That helps. But it's nice having these sons that are starting to get to an age where I can ask them to do things, and they're able to jump in and lend a hand, and we can kind of delegate some of these tasks. It's going to be cool. One of the things my wife suggested yesterday too, because I took the video number 6 and I turned it on the TV, which was kind of cool. I was watching that with her. I went over to Meadowlark Brewery here in Sydney. They have some really good food, just really great atmosphere, really good beer too. By the way, I drink beer. I do, not in excess. I mentioned controversial subjects and topics yesterday. That is one, depending on what circle you're in. I have a number of family members that believe very firmly that wine in the Bible, when Jesus performs his first miracle of his public ministry, turning water into wine at the wedding in Cana, that wine was grape juice. And of course they are mistaken. And I've discussed that fact with a number of them and the reasons why. But in any event, the Bible does not say that alcohol is a sin. It doesn't say that wine is a sin or that drinking it is a sin. In moderation, it's good stuff. God made wine to gladden men's spirits, according to one proverb. Here, let's find it. Psalm 104, verse 15. We'll read verse 14 as well to get the context, because this one starts with the middle of a sentence. This is speaking to God. You cause the grass to grow for the livestock and plants for man to cultivate, that he may bring forth food from the earth, and wine to gladden the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. That is a topic for another day. There's more to say about it. And anyway, suffice to say, Meadowlark here in Sydney makes some really good brews. Harvester, it's just a nice smoothie cream ale that they make, really good. But didn't get anything in that regard here yesterday. I did get my wife a French dip sandwich with some sautéed vegetables from there, because there was a little notification reminder in my Facebook feed from a year ago from me having taken a picture of her on her birthday last year when I took her over to Meadowlark, and she got that, and I think that's what she gets every time pretty much, because it works. She likes it. It's her favorite. And so I called in an order and went and picked that up, and that's what she had for supper last night. But while she was eating that, I asked her to watch this latest video blog, and the thing that she recommended was that I take some notes on what I was going to talk about. Or I'd pick a topic, have somebody help me pick topics, and then research the topic and then discuss that, and then that would give it more focus, less meandering. She also recommended I make the videos shorter. One thing you have to know about my wife, I mentioned in the video yesterday, she doesn't like conflict, doesn't care for it. My wife is a very quiet woman, very understated, but very direct. You know, she's a sweetheart, but what will take me paragraphs upon paragraphs and pages upon pages, literally, to say, she finds some way of condensing down to a sentence, and she says it, when I condense things down to a sentence, it's usually not nice, you know. people get upset. You know, when she condenses things down to a sentence that people are like, wow, that's really, man, yeah, that's a profound point. Good job, you know. So she has a gift in that ability. That helps me. I rely on that from time to time when I am just suffering and everyone else is suffering from me being so long-winded. I say, how would you put that more succinctly? I don't have the luxury. I can't indulge myself in this case to go on and on forever and trying to make the point I'm going to try to make here. But I don't know. I notice Stefan Molyneux, YouTube video blogger. He's got a radio program. Smart guy, intellectual guy. He's got a video program that I've watched a number of times, and I think his videos are an hour long, 2 hours long in some cases, and it makes sense if it's kind of like a radio program format. Then it makes sense that he would be that long, and you know, some people can do that, some people can't. Some viewers are interested in that, some aren't. I'm not primarily viewing this video blog as being audience-driven, and you know, I reckon that the people that like it are going to stick around, and the people that don't like just how I naturally communicate. You know, I can't change the way I naturally communicate just to cater to them, but I think there will be a market for people that like, you know, maybe you turn this on in the background and you're washing dishes, or you're folding laundry, or you're driving someplace, or whatever, you know, yeah, it's up to you. Whatever you do, I'm gonna roll with it in the way that seems most natural, most intuitive to me, and then I'll adjust and fine tune and tweak it as I go. But I'm going part way on my wife's advice. I try to take anytime somebody gives me feedback, advice, I try and take as much out of it as I can, even though there's usually ways that I'm tweaking their advice before I adopt it to make sure that it is a collaborative process and that I am also making a decision on how I'm going about things. Wanted to mention, so I took a little Microsoft Word document here and I jotted down, the high points of what I'd like to discuss today. Yesterday I picked one topic to talk about, and that was controversial topics. The topic was topics that are controversial, and what makes one topic controversial and another safe. And I just meandered through on that. But today, a couple things I want to hit. One, today's Mother's Day, and I don't want to be cliche and say to all you mothers out there, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sure there's enough people doing that. That's why it's cliche. You've gotten enough thank yous. The collective of moms all over the place, you'll be fine. I'm glad for mothers. I'm glad it's Mother's Day. I'm glad we have a day where we celebrate motherhood. And, I want to thank my wife in particular for being the mother of my children. For young men, and I've got all these sons, right? I'm expecting my sixth son. John Lazarus will be my sixth. I have Josiah, Elihu, Solomon, Daniel, Enoch, and John. And I'm going to have to give advice to these young men as they get older on how to go about selecting a mate, a woman to become betrothed to propose to get married to raise a family with. And I think they're, hey, I'm biased, but I think my sons, they're good-looking young men, and they're going to be, I think they're going to be smart, capable, hardworking, upstanding, funny, creative men when they get to the age where they actually get to make a decision on getting married. And I think they're going to have their I think they'll have their pick of whatever eligible young ladies are available. And I could be wrong on that. It doesn't really matter one way or the other, so long as they're following God's guidance in their lives. I think too many people, they get anxious about who their kids are going to marry and all of that. And first and foremost, you should be focused on asking for God's guidance and direction in their lives, and not just on that single issue, but on everything in general. Because I think here's the deal. You want your son to marry a good godly woman, your daughter to marry a good godly man. Encourage them to be following and seeking out God's direction in their lives in every area, and not waiting. You shouldn't be just sitting there waiting for a spouse to fall into your lap at some point. But if you're going about doing what God has called you to, and you're on mission, well, chances are high that the kind of gal that you're wanting to attract, or that you're wanting your children to attract, are going to see that, and the kind of person that you want to marry, or that you want your children to marry, or whatever, if you're wanting a good godly spouse, they're going to be attracted that you're on mission, and they're going to want to be on mission with you. And that's what what the scriptures are talking about when they say, do not be unequally yoked with non-believers. You know, you guys are supposed to be doing life together. You're supposed to be on mission together, pulling in the same direction. If you had two oxen, not that we in this modern culture are as familiar with livestock and oxen and having things pulled by oxen. You know, two tractor trailers, pulling the same trailer, but they're pulling in opposite directions. You're gonna pull that trailer apart, and the stronger of the two trucks is gonna rip off, you know, or whichever is hitched to the stronger part of the trailer is gonna rip off the lion's share of the trailer. But you're not gonna have the full trailer. You're not gonna go in the same direction. You're gonna have lost motion, aggravation. Or you're just gonna have to sit there parked and go nowhere until you guys get oriented in the right direction. And so therefore, using that analogy, it's wise to only get hitched to someone who is pulling in the same direction as you, as far as worldview goes. So anyway, I have had the incredibly good fortune of God bringing my wife into my life, and I mean that. I truly believe it was divine intervention, and there were a number of people that thought we were crazy, and I'm sure there's a number of people that still think we're crazy, and think I in particular am crazy. And these YouTube videos are probably just underscoring the point. They're saying, you know, we were right. You know, they're probably not even watching. They've written me off so many years ago that you know, this is just, you know, irrelevant to them. But a number of people thought we were crazy, but I think what they didn't factor in was that we were seeking after what does God want for our lives. That's what everybody was encouraging us and calling us to do. And in seeking God's will for our lives, we believed very, very strongly that God's will was that we get married, and that we were meant for one another, that God had ordained our wedding. And what God has brought together, let no man tear asunder. You know, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Here it's Mother's Day. I'm talking all about my wife. I'm talking about marriage. Why is that? Well, the reason is marriage should be a precondition for motherhood. Parenting, you know, I have shared that my parents got divorced when I was in junior high. That was catastrophic, and it was not a good situation between my parents. I wouldn't say that they had a good relationship prior to that. So, you know, there's situations where, you know, kids grow up, or you know, two married people separate, and you know, you say, well, the divorce was better than this bad situation just, you know, being prolonged. And you know, I won't get into that. I think there's merit in that kind of thinking. That's why there is a time and a place for divorce, maybe. But you know, in the case of my parents, you know, that I had a father and a mother who did not get along to the point that they stopped being married to each other. And you know, this is a pandemic across America of failed marriages, broken families, broken homes. You know, 50% of, roughly, you know, I'm spitballing there. That's the figure everybody throws around. I haven't verified it, but if everybody's saying it, it must be true, right? If I Googled it and it came up, you know, anyway. You know, 50% of marriages in America end in divorce. All these kids growing up without both a mother and a father in the home, or with, their parents getting married and remarried and dating and constantly regressing to an earlier stage of life that they should have had in the bag and sorted out before your time, before, if you're the child of this union, the time for dating and getting engaged and getting married is past, Not to judge anybody. I don't mean to be harsh or unkind to people that do, they had a justified reason for getting divorced. Now they're remarried. Who am I to judge that? But that it is one thing that the scriptures talk about. Jesus is asked at one point, this hypothetical scenario. This woman is married to a man, and then he dies, and she marries another man, and then he dies, and she's married to another guy, and she's got all these different spouses, and whose wife will she be in heaven? And Jesus says that the whole basis for the question is wrong. He believes they're trying to trap him. I believe that's one of many cases where he's being asked an entrapping question, and he says, we will neither marry nor be given in marriage, but will be as the angels. And even in the case of divorce, according to Jesus, he says that, Moses only permitted divorce because of the hardness of our hearts. The people of Israel had hard hearts, if we want to be contextualized there. That law was given to the Israelites. I think it still can shed light on, our current situation. We can derive principles from it and all that. But, my wife and I have been married for 11 years. It'll be 12 in November. And we have had all these kids. My wife is a mother several times over. And I think the world of her. I think she's fantastic. When you're picking somebody to spend the rest of your life with, and you're asking, as a Christian, you should be asking God, first and foremost, is this who you have picked out for me? And if the answer is no, then, move on. Don't rush it. Don't jump into it prematurely. Move on. Or give it time. Maybe it's not time yet. My wife and I, when we first met, I wasn't particularly taken with her, and she was not particularly taken with me. She thought I was obnoxious, and I am sometimes, and I was back then. The odd thing for me was, at the time though, everybody else liked me. I was pretty popular in high school, and I ran in some pretty diverse circles. I had friends that were geeks, and friends that were jocks, and friends that were into computer science and computer programming, and I had friends that were in theater, and I had friends that all these different spheres that I got along with, and I seemed to be pretty well liked, and I was confident, and I had a number of girls that liked me, and I knew that, and so I was caught off guard when this girl, this Lauren Duff, that's her maiden name, Lauren Elizabeth Duff, just seemed to bristle every time I walked into the room. Just didn't like me, and I'd ask how she was, and she'd say fine, and I would be able to tell because her jaw was tensed, and she didn't look happy, and like, I don't think you're fine, I think there's something wrong What is it? How are you really? I want to talk with you. I want to have a conversation with you. I care. I'm trying to be nice, and she didn't like it. And she didn't like me. And I'm like, what? She's come to find out, in the years that passed, that she didn't like that I was pushing and asking. I didn't accept when she just said she was fine, and she thought I was obnoxious, and I thought that she was obnoxious for thinking that I was obnoxious, and I thought that she, everybody else thinks I'm great. Why? Why don't you? And so. We were in the same Bible study and youth group, and had a lot of the same friends, and I felt like it was awkward that here we're Christians, we're if there's this strife and this friction between us, then what does that do? Does that make things unpleasant and awkward for everybody else? So I wanted to sort it out, get to the bottom of it, figure out what I had done to offend her, or what was going on. So, I asked if she and I could talk about it one afternoon by, over at the park, and so we sat by the creek, watched the water go by, sat on some rocks, and discussed it. And come to find out, I'm like, what, why, what's bothering you? What did I do to bother you? And she said, well, I don't like it when you push and you ask me what's bothering me. So that was to say, what I was doing right then with pushing to find out what was bothering her, that was what bothered, it was the very thing that was driving her nuts. But we worked through that, we worked past it, and we actually became friends as we, opened up, and we were vulnerable, and we were willing to share, hey, here's what is going on, kind of in my broader context. It ended up blossoming into pretty much the only relationship I had that I really truly felt like I could be myself in. With everybody else, I thought that I had to be smart and funny and charming and positive all the time, and that's what everybody expected and needed from me, and that's what I had to be in order to hold up, to maintain all my popularity and everything. And with Lauren, I was able to be real, to be authentic, to be genuine, to be myself. And I felt oddly comfortable being myself. And here's this quiet young gal. She worked at the library, which is part of why I have taken to books. I was going to the library all the time to check out books, and the librarian, she's this quiet librarian, and I would ask, how she was doing after we worked through that, and she would actually tell me, and we would actually be able to carry on a conversation about, and that felt like, to me, a huge accomplishment. That was a difficult thing, getting her to be willing to talk about things, but felt like it was worth the effort. And so, all of that is to say too, when it comes to Mother's Day, you mothers out there, do your children a favor, give them advice to not hurry love. Love don't come easy. It's a game of give and take. Uh, oh, that song is playing in my head. No, you can't hurry, love. Oh, you'll just have to wait. No, I think, and I've told my sons this. I said, you guys you're young. You're 10, 9, 8, 7. What is Evelyn? 4? 5? Enoch's 2. John is to be determined. I've told him, you guys don't need to worry about marriage for quite some time. You've got at least a decade ahead of you, I hope. All of you. When you come to it, just be friends. Just be nice. Just be a decent person. Be respectful of the opposite gender. Make sure that you're maintaining your self-respect. Make sure you're honoring God in the way that you interact with them, and honor them. Honor the opposite gender, and the way that Lauren and I worked out was it was a friendship. We were frenemies, and then we turned into really good friends, and then that just blossomed into I'd like to spend the rest of my life with you. How do we make that happen? And so anyway, now we've got all these kids, and I am so glad that Lauren is the mother of them. So, moving on. Last Man Standing is coming back. Tim Allen's sitcom. It was canceled by ABC. Even though it had good ratings, it was well received. It was doing well. It was a funny show. I really liked it. I think everybody that I know who's watched it really liked it. And the refreshing thing about it was that Tim Allen on the show was playing a conservative. And, here in the show, he's got his wife, who's a professional, and he's got his daughters, and he's trying to raise them, and he doesn't shy away from politics. He talks about politics and what's going on in broader society. And one of the things that he does as a way of talking about this stuff and doing a little bit of political commentary, social commentary on the show, is that his character is a marketing director for a sporting goods store. And one of the things he comes up with as a way of marketing this sporting goods store is having a video blog. How about that? What a great idea, video blog. And on this video blog, he'll start off talking about what the deals are. Hey, we've got firearms and Hunter's Orange and pontoons and fishing poles on sale this week at Outdoor Man. And oh, by the way, what really bugs me, and then he goes into talking about this issue that he's just come across. And I thought it was great. I really, really enjoyed Last Man Standing. It felt authentic. Felt it resonated with me, and I didn't feel like I was being mocked, for being conservative, or for believing that there is right and wrong, and there's anyway. So that show is coming back. I think that's great. I think also too, it's disturbing that the show was canceled to begin with. If that was a breath of fresh air because it was so uncommon to find a personality like that in modern TV, it's disturbing that his show would be canceled because he was as he says, a likable conservative. There's nothing that the left and that Hollywood finds more dangerous right now than a likable conservative. I think that's stories like that have a chilling effect on political discourse. And shame on the left, shame on Hollywood, shame on the people at ABC that made that decision. Shame on them for being so intolerant. This is America. And by golly, we should be free. We are free. We have God-given rights to say that we don't like what you're doing with the progressive agenda. We don't like what you're turning this country into. We like our freedom. We like our liberty. We want to be free and to be not just free to do what you give us permission to do, but to be free in all ways. For the government to be the thing that is restrained so that we can have liberty. That's what we want. And for the left to then work its tentacles like Hydra, work its tentacles into education, into mass media, into journalism, and to just be so dishonest and manipulative and intimidating is it's intolerable. But I'm glad Tim Allen, Last Man Standing, are coming back. I'm optimistic about that. Not that I even feel the need to watch every episode. I haven't watched every episode, but I'm excited that that's coming back. I think that's a good thing. Another thing I want to talk about that's related. Read this article. Came up in my Facebook feed today. It's from Fox News. Like I said in an earlier video, I don't watch Fox News. I don't get cable. Don't get satellite. But every now and then, one of their videos pops up. Short little videos or short little articles pops up in my feed, and I'll click on it. But students dismiss idea of Nobel Prize for Trump, defend Obama's, but don't know why. So the story here is Donald Trump, by telling Kim Jong-un that he had a big red button for launching nukes with, and by posturing very aggressively, by a strategy of peace through strength, he has brought North Korea to the bargaining table. And they want to talk. They want to discuss bringing an actual end to the Korean War, because it never actually ended. It's just been a perpetual ceasefire and an uneasy lull in the fighting. But North Korea wants to talk, and they, the leader of North Korea met with the leader of South Korea at the border and shook hands and held hands and went skipping through the flowers. And it was, this, I'm sure, highly choreographed event. But that did not happen under any of the other presidents we've had since the Korean War started. That has not happened. And the delicate approach, the very subtle approach of giving China and North Korea whatever they want and apologizing for American imperialism, whatever that is, American imperialism. By all rights, historically speaking, before international war, aggressive war became illegal, and and it has been illegal, by the way, according to international law for about a century now. There's a great book, The Internationalists, which is pro-progressive, pro-globalism, but I think the authors, they do a good enough job with scholarship, with presenting the facts of the situation. You can get past that. You can forgive them for their letting it slip every now and then that they are in favor of what's happened. You had World War I, World War II, hugely bloody affairs. And I wrote about this for the blog after I read the book. Actually got one of the authors of The Internationalists to follow me on Twitter, which was pretty cool. He's a professor at, I don't even remember which universities. It doesn't really matter. It was like Harvard and Yale and I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But internationalists, after World War I, World War II, the world's intellectuals and political elites and business leaders and basically all the big movers and shakers, especially in America and in Europe, said that is enough. That is the end. We cannot keep doing this. We are going to just obliterate our own race, destroy our planet. World War I and World War II, all these firearms and airplanes and the artillery, the bombs, the destructive capacity that we have now on an industrial scale. Then you see atomic weaponry come into play at the end of World War II. It brings World War II to a close. And so they crafted international law and an international governing body, which was originally the League of Nations, and then it became the United Nations. They fashioned this as a way of bringing an end to conflicts between nations before they came to blows. And obviously, there have been plenty of wars since war was made illegal. That wasn't the end of the conflict, but it marked a shift in the paradigm. Because for all of human history before that, to the victor went the spoils. And if you, as Persia or Rome or any other nation, if you went into a neighboring country and you were able to defeat their armies on the battlefield and you were able to get into their city unopposed, you pillaged and you raped and you burned and you might even install governors. You might build settlements and say, hey, we're going to be here for the long haul. This is now our territory. And so countries would grow and shrink accordingly, or disappear, or come to be out of thin air based on conquest and fighting and war. And here in modern times, America has been the big dog. We've been the strong, leading, powerful nation. And we had the Cold War, where the Soviet countries were facing off against us to decide who was going to rule the world. Soviet Union collapsed, supposedly. Marxism, unfortunately, didn't die, and all these Marxists going around in Hollywood and in journalism and academia are still trying to inject Marxist thinking into the mainstream of culture, so that then we naturally evolve into what they wish that the Soviet Union would have been, this big, huge success story. And that's where you get progressivism. Progressivism is Marxism. It is just a slow, gradual evolution towards it. But America and the Soviet Union, freedom versus statism versus absolute oppression over every aspect of your life. You know, the state doesn't just own the means of production. You are the means of production. The state owns you. And everything you think and everything you say and everything you want to do, everything you do, everything you feel is under the watchful eye of the state in a communist country. And this, of course, has a chilling effect. And those who are not towing the party line and who undermine it and who call into question the powers that be, they're off the reservation. They get their shows canceled on ABC. They get their Twitter accounts and their Facebook accounts blocked. They get what's being done with censorship and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, Google it's sick. It's dangerous. It's stupid. You know, the Marxists, those that are always wanting, you know, they're calling for us to vote for Bernie Sanders and whoever else is going to give them free stuff. Well, that free stuff comes from somewhere. And actually, didn't you know, it comes out of your pocket before they give it back to you. And before they give it back to you, they take their cut. They only have to give you what they first took away. And you're thinking of the rich. Who's defining the rich? You know, most of the world, if the most of the world defines who the rich is, you're the rich. You're going to come take your stuff. The guy that's subsisting on $3 a day in some third world country defines you as the rich. And that is the explanation for why the Obama administration didn't get anything done with Korea, with Iran, with Russia, with China. They didn't get anything done except for to humiliate this country, to make us look stupid and weak, and in fact, to make us stupid and weak. You know, here these students dismiss the idea of Trump winning a Nobel Prize. They don't know what he's done because the journalists who were in bed with the Obama administration and covering for them and helping them to spread their lies, the journalists, with some exceptions, have been on a nonstop obsessive track of trying to destroy and undermine the Trump administration. And everything he says, everything he tweets, everything he does is racist and misogynistic. And look, Russia. I'm sorry, Hillary Clinton and Uranium One. I thought you liked Russia. When did that change? Did they pay you to point the finger at Trump now? Is that what this is? Or, you know, you liked Russia when you were getting their money, and now that maybe you're not going to get their money? Is that what it is? If Trump is in office and he toes a tough line, and all of a sudden your gravy train days are over, is that why you're upset? Now you're going to bring up the... You know, what it is it's trying to control the narrative, getting ahead of it. You know, for several years, if anybody was paying attention, they would know this. Several years, it was conspicuous that we had sold a massive amount of America's uranium to the Russians, and money had funneled to the Clinton Foundation, to the Clintons, to Bill and Hillary and Chelsea Clinton, as a way of you scratch my back, I scratch yours. You know, it was treacherous. It was traitorous. They should be in jail. They should not have a dime. They should not have a platform. And the media in this country that has known that and turned a blind eye to it or endorsed it, you know, there's no neutrality there. You can't just not cover that story and then, oh, I'm being objective. No, you're not. You're being part of the problem. You're part of why these students on college campuses don't know what a Hillary presidency would have meant, and what kind of a bullet we dodged as a nation with her not getting elected. Same also for the the teachers' unions and the professors and the anti-Trump, pro-Hillary, pro-progressive teachers and professors in America, shame on you. You are the problem. I'll pray for you. Nobody even knows why Obama got a Nobel Prize in his first year. I'll tell you why he got a Nobel Prize. He got a Nobel Prize because he was going to be the fulfillment of the progressive pipe dream. And so he had to have this credential, this smoke that he could blow, so that it would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like if you came to a race, and just by showing up, they said, here's your gold medal, and now go run it, and now you'll be faster because you've got a gold medal. Or now the other racers are gonna give up, throw in the towel because you've already been given the gold medal. It was rigged. It was a crock. And honestly, in a world in which Obama's going to get a Nobel Peace Prize, why should we want Trump to get one? Why should we? It's lost its meaning. It's like the Boy Scouts saying we're going to drop the name boy, and then they lose 425,000 members in 1 week. You've gutted yourself morally. You've compromised. You've completely capitulated. Sold out. To the point where it now does not. It is not an honor to receive a Nobel Prize if Obama has received one, in my opinion. Now, don't go giving me a Nobel Prize just because I said that. One other story. I'll wrap this up. I'm getting into that 1 hour period. There's a story in the New York Times came up this morning, and it really intrigued me. This is a little offbeat. China's last cave dwellers fight to keep their underground homes. Officials have told them to leave and offered them modern homes, but the residents of Zhong Cave in remote southwestern China are determined to stay. Small rabbit trail. I mentioned Pinterest the other day. I have over 40,000 pins on Pinterest. And some of the biggest boards that I've got are for ideas, architectural, decorating, layout ideas for the home that I want to build someday. And part of, a core central part of the design that I want for my house someday is I want to have an underground home. I want it to be built into the side of a hill, and for only one corner or one half of the house to be exposed to people that are walking by, or driving by, or flying by, or whatever. And my reasons for this are multiple. First reason, it's different. Not everybody's doing it, which makes it cool. I don't want to be vanilla. I don't want to be, everybody else has got houses that are just completely out of the ground except for your basement. It's boring. Second reason is it's efficient, energy efficient. The insulating property, which a hill full of dirt brings to your home. You heat your house, you cool your house, and it's much more likely to stay hot, stay cold if you've only got windows and whatnot on one side of the building. Another thing is too, it just looks cozy. I don't know. You know, I really got into Lord of the Rings in high school. The movies came out that Peter Jackson made, and then from that, I read the books, and Hobbit homes, just cool. Like what, what decent person wouldn't want to live in a Hobbit home? I mean, you're boring, and you're horrible. If that doesn't appeal to you, you have no soul. I'm pretty sure. That's going too far, but just so anyway, I'd like to have an underground home. I think it'd be cool. And so I saw this, and it showed up as one of the headlines on Drudge. China's last cave dwellers fight to keep their underground homes. And in reading the article, and you can go find it, Google it, go to Drudge if you get there in time, if they don't take it down by the time you get there. This community of rural Chinese, they got fed up before modern China became a thing. They got fed up with being raided by bandits, and so they took to the hills. They found this cave to kind of hide in, to settle in. They built up these ramshackle homes. They're not highly attractive homes. I think the people there are still highly impoverished, and the tourism which this cave-dwelling community has attracted from all over the world. I think, the article doesn't say this, but I think that's part of why the Chinese government is trying to get them out of there and get them kind of in a little bit more under control, get them moved to an established community outside of the caves, because this New York Times piece is probably just horrifying. The Chinese government probably doesn't want that getting out, that, hey, we don't have a grip on our own people. That's what you get with Marxism. People should be free to live in a cave if they want to. I'm biased because I want to live in an underground home. But no, one of the things that I read in this article, was talking about how residents of this cave community, the only contact that they would have with the outside world other than tourism was when Chinese government officials would come and take women away who had violated the one-child policy, and then they would either force them to get abortions or forcibly sterilize them. And I tell you what, I think that is awful. That makes me angry. And don't let my quiet, calm demeanor mislead you. That makes me angry. These families, they're hiding out from bandits. Boy, howdy! I mean, if I had to choose between, having a bandit come and take away a bag of rice that my family's trying to eat, or some other valuable thing, run off with my TV, my computer even. If I had to choose between that and the government of my country coming and saying, hey, we're going to take your wife away. We're going to force her to have an abortion against your will. We're going to sterilize your wife. Them's fighting words. These kids on these college campuses who are being taught to be little Marxists and socialists and to embrace that progressive agenda, who don't think that Trump should get a Nobel Prize for bringing North Koreans to the bargaining table, negotiating table. All these Bernie Sanders voters. Is that what you want? these poor Chinese cave dwellers being given too little. And that's part of the reason why several of them have said they didn't want to move away. They said that they were offered $9,500, and the homes that they were offered were too small, and they like their cave. I mean, their cave is, they said that the temperature is just very, very pleasant. That's their home. That's their community. These are the people that they want to be in relationship with, that they've known their entire lives. And the Chinese government is just saying, no, that doesn't fit with our model and what we want. And rather than investing, why couldn't the Chinese government say, hey, rather than uproot you, we're going to fix up your homes. We'll take that $9,500, fix up your homes, fix up your little system here, and you can continue living in this cave if you want, but we'll make it a nice cave. We'll help supplement what you're wanting to do. Well, that's not the way the Chinese government, the Chinese culture works. It's about conformity, collectivism, control. And here in America, we are not about that. We are about freedom and liberty. At least that's what was advertised. At least that's what the tradition has been. If Last Man Standing is coming back, I sure hope he's not the last man standing from a conservative standpoint. Any of these Christians that would say, political issues, we shouldn't get involved in that. The church has always been persecuted. We should welcome persecution because it will sharpen our faith. It will refine it. We should be prepared. Just prepare to suffer. Stick to the gospel. Guess what? We are not called to go looking for a hill to die on. Take up your cross and follow me. Jesus did not go before his time. When they arrested him, that was within God's timing. There were several other times that they wanted to pick up stones to stone him to death, or they wanted to seize him to put him to death. Or several times where trapping questions were asked of Jesus because the religious leaders were afraid to do anything while the crowd still supported him. And they thought if they could ask a trapping question that exposed this fraud, this phony, this charlatan for what he was, then the people would take care of Jesus. The religious leaders, they'd be able to keep their hands clean, avoid any kind of bad blood with the Roman government. And Jesus did not, at the first opportunity to be martyred, just throw himself on the pyre, grab a torch. Yeah, I'm going to immolate myself. No. Think about that. You're trying to virtue signal. I'm sorry. You're virtue signaling as a Christian and trying to sound more righteous and more pious and more spiritual than everybody else by welcoming something you know nothing about. You can't lecture the rest of us who are saying persecution is coming and we should say something about it. And we should get ready by being active and by campaigning to stop censorship, to stop persecution before it starts. By saying, yeah, persecution, bring it. You don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, you don't. Are you going to be saying, bring the persecution, if something like what China was doing with the one-child policy, if that gets implemented here in America, and some bureaucrat someplace has decided that you're only allowed to have 2 children because of global warming, because in their socialist utopian, centrally planned worldview, they agree with Richard Dawkins that Christianity is child abuse. Teaching your children is child abuse. If you teach them that Jesus is the Son of God, who came, died, buried, and was resurrected for the atonement of your sins, forgiveness of your sins, to secure eternal life and restoration of a right relationship with the Father. If you teach that, then you're abusing your child, and we're going to either take your children away, we're going to sterilize you, we're going to force you to get an abortion. You know, you can say that's ridiculous, but look at China. It happened. It's not ridiculous. You get the same thinking. You know, it's racist and ignorant, stupid to assume that it wouldn't happen here just because we're America. You know what? The only thing that ever made America great, really truly, was ideas, principles, values. You get rid of those values and those principles and those ideals. If you bring in ideals and principles and values that have been historically known to lead to the mass slaughter of people, you won't have America. You will have the countries that you're emulating. You will have Venezuela, or China, or Russia, or North Korea, or some amalgamation of all of them. That's not what we want. You know, it's Mother's Day. I hope we appreciate that in this country, that the pain, the discomfort our mothers went through for us to be here. You know, if you and I are here, our mothers gave birth to us, and they didn't just give birth to us. You know, they carried us for 9 months. I'm watching my wife now it's actually the 8th time. We've had one miscarriage. That was really sad for us. I watch my wife uncomfortable. Ready to just be over and done with it. You know, she's picking up her cross and following after Jesus. You know, thank God for mothers, and may we all have the right attitude about motherhood, about children, about family, about how we order our affairs. So with that, I leave off. Have a good day. Till next time.